Conversations podcast.
Hello folks, and thank you very much for tuning in for another episode of Conversations Interpreting and Translating. Today I am with Simone Aliano. Simone is a certified interpreter and translator of the Spanish language, and I was actually very lucky to study with her. We did our masters together at RMIT University. Hello Simone, how are you?
Hey Fatih, I'm great. How are you?
Thank you very much. I'm also very good. Much better for seeing your lovely face.
Oh, it's so lovely.
I love you've lined up all your certificates and testaments behind you there.
I got to say, one of them's actually my husband, so you got to give credit where it's due.
Well, having said that, though, I've got here in front of me that you have a master's degree in international relations from Melbourne Uni, as well as a master's of translating and interpreting in Spanish. And what's your bachelor? That's got to be one of them.
Yeah, Bachelor of Arts from Melbourne Uni as well. So specialising in Spanish and international studies. So mixing the two.
There we go, indeed. So there is a 3 out of 4, and we'll just give Jordan the last one there. All right. Yeah. Like I said, we did our studies together with Simone at RMIT University, and we did our masters there together. And as some of you might know, that we sent out some videos and some emails asking if you have any topics, please write to us, call us. We'd love for you to, give your opinion on what kind of things we could cover. And just earlier this week, I received an email from a student who's just graduating from a Tni course at a university. And she said, look, I really like your podcasts. We are graduating. We have no idea what we're going to do when we get out there, and we are freaking out. Can you please do an episode on how does a translating and interpreting student, once they've graduated, jump into the professional life? So I thought, hang on, who do I know that has gone from being an amazing student to being an amazing practitioner, a founder and an owner of a translating and interpreting company, probably overnight success. I said, hang on, I know a person exactly like that. I'll call Simone and see if she wants to be on this podcast with us, and hopefully share some of her experiences and maybe give some tips to these newly graduates of TNI courses. Simone, what do you think?
Look, I'm really, really happy that someone actually brought that topic up, because I know I speak from my own experience that I asked exactly the same question when I graduated. So I'm more than happy to share some little pearls of wisdom that I picked up along the way. So thanks for inviting me, Fatih.
No, thank you very much for coming and accepting my invitation. Probably like yourself, the day after I graduated, actually after the last exam, I was like, oh my God, I have no idea what I'm going to do. Yeah. How am I going to get out there? How do I get work? What do I do? How much money am I going to make? I was actually really, really scared.
Yep.
Going into changing my whole professional life from one industry to the other, which most of the TNI students do. As you know, majority of them are mature age students, and TNI won't be their first jobs. So there is also that excitement as well of, what's next. So today we're going to cover, now that you've graduated, what are you going to do next? So first thing to do, I guess, is to pass the NAATI test, right, Simone?
Yeah, absolutely. Unfortunately, in Australia, you can't work as a professional translator or interpreter without going through NAATI first. So that is number one, step number one.
Step number one. All right, pass the NAATI test. Now that you've graduated, pass the NAATI test. Having said that, yes, if you want to work in Australia, NAATI is essential. But for international work, you can, use your university degree for that purpose. But I guess the majority of the work that you're going to get in Australia will be local work that would require a NAATI certification. All right, so after that, I've put here most places that you are going to work for or work with are going to ask for a working with children check and a police check, right?
Yes, absolutely. Well, especially in the interpreting field, as you know, Fatih, like you go and work in a whole range of different areas, and sometimes that will involve working with families and children, and agencies particularly won't hire you unless you have that working with children's check. So it's very important to ensure that you get that, and a police check as well.
How do you get these things?
Very easily, actually. So I know that in Australia at least, I know Australia Post will do your police check for you. So it's just a matter of getting some ID. So usually they ask for a passport or a driver's license, Medicare card, that sort of stuff. And they'll run the police check for you. It's pretty painless. I did one recently all online, and I think it cost me about $50. So it's roughly around that. Yep. Working with children is much the same sort of process. You'll need the same sort of details. It runs mostly like a police check, really, but you'll also need a special little photo of yourself, like passport photo, because they will be printing you out a card that you'll need to show the agencies as part of your working with children's check.
All right, so you've got your NAATI test check, working with children check, police check. So all of these you can do online, especially we're talking about the working with children check and police check. You can do them online. It's not going to cost you much, and you're definitely going to need them. So while you're waiting even for your NAATI test date, as soon as you graduate, you can maybe apply for these and get them rolling in the meanwhile.
Absolutely. I think that's a really smart idea. You don't want to have your NAATI certification come through and then have to wait even longer to be able to work. NAATI does take a bit of time to obviously run the test and then send you through the accreditation if you do pass. So I think it's really smart to get those other things happening because you know you're going to need them. Yeah,
and the police check and the working with children check, it does take a few weeks.
Yes, that's right. Yep.
Better get a step ahead. Now, majority of the work, I guess, for an interpreter translator in Australia, at least initially, is going to be done through freelancing. Right? Mm-hmm. You've got to be working probably for an agency. Okay. So how do you start working for an agency?
Well, honestly, in my experience, when I got my NAATI accreditation, they pop you on the NAATI register. So your name and details, your NAATI number, and your language directions are all posted on the NAATI website. And I found that a lot of agencies actually contacted me in the first instance. Yeah. They keep an eye on names specifically for languages that they need. And they usually look at any new interpreters that have come on the scene and will approach you for work. So I found that was quite interesting. There were a few agencies that I knew about that were really good through talking with other interpreters in the profession that I actually went and spoke to. So I think the more exposure you get to the different agencies that are out there, the more you've got that ability to go and approach them if they haven't already approached you.
Yeah, so I guess you've got the 4 big names out there, and then some new ones coming up as well. So yes. Look, I'm going to give the names just to give the students a little bit of a leeway and some guidance. So you've got what they call the big 4. You've got all graduates, on call, TIS National, as well as WITS in Victoria, or it's called Language Loop now. So you should know. Yep. So that's Victoria, and then of course in New South Wales. You've got Multicultural New South Wales Language Services, as well as New South Wales Healthcare Interpreting Services. So you can put your application in through to these agencies and or organizations, and you can easily put your application through once you have your graduation testament as well as your NAATI certification. You can easily put an application through their website. So just log on to their websites, and these agencies are always looking for well-trained interpreters and translators. So, you know, I mean, Simone was very lucky. They approached there, but they might not all approach you, or they might not approach you straight away. So, you know, you can get on the front foot and get on the website of these agencies, and look, and in the last few years, there's been quite a few new agencies that have opened up as well. I know TOEM is one of them that I see quite regularly too.
Yep.
So, get out there and put yourself out there, and make your applications. It doesn't hurt. The more agencies, the thing with freelancing is you can work for multiple agencies. You don't have to just work for one agency. And the more agencies you work for, the more job opportunities you have, I guess, right?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. So I would 100% recommend signing up with a few different agencies, because sometimes one agency will have a lot of work and others not so much for you. And then vice versa. It's really important just to have all your options open, particularly if you're working full-time as a translator and interpreter. Yep.
Very good. So when you're working with these agencies or organizations, some of them work with ABN and some of them work with a TFN. What's the difference, Simone? And how does someone get an ABN?
Okay, so a TFN is your tax file number. So if you live in Australia as a permanent resident, or actually no, not even as a if you're working in Australia, you need a tax file number. It's the way that the tax department can identify you and see how much tax you're paying. So that you should already have. You get one of those from the ATO if you haven't already got one. If you are an international student, you need to just double check that you are able to work in Australia and eligible for a tax file number. So that's a good question to ask the tax office. And an ABN essentially is a business number, an Australian business number. And it's something that you need if you're working as a freelancer particularly, and you're going to be invoicing people for your translating and interpreting work, you will need an ABN as well. So both of those things are able to be obtained through the ATO. I know that with an ABN, you can also do it online via the Australian Business Register website, and it's quick, pretty painless really, but you do need a tax file number in order to do it.
That's right. So that's the ABR, Australian Business Registry. You can get on there and apply for an ABN. Again, like you said, it's pretty stress-free and you usually get one straight away. So yes, when you're working as a freelancer, you become what is known as a sole trader. Okay, so one thing to note when you are working with your ABN, if you haven't worked with an ABN before, is that you need to put some money aside to pay for your taxes, because when you invoice with an ABN, they pay you the whole thing. Okay, there's no tax put aside. You get the entire thing, and if you don't put some money aside to pay your tax at the end of the year, you might end up owing a lot of money. So be careful with that. So do a bit of research into paying as you go, or PAYG, in regards to your ABN tax payments. So be careful with that. In my first year, I got a lot of work through my ABN, and I didn't put any money aside. So I ended up with a huge tax debt.
Oh, gosh, yeah, you don't want that in your first year as an interpreter or a translator. That is definite. You want to avoid that.
I'd never worked with an ABN before. I worked for another company in another world, in another lifetime, in another industry, and I got an ABN. I started going, oh, great, all this money coming, no worries. And then at the end of the year, I got like a $5,000-$6,000 tax debt. And I'm like, oh my God, what am I going to do? So I started putting money aside or paying as I went. I think I was paying quarterly or something. And then if you pay too much, they pay you back. So be careful with that. Put some research into that. Another thing to note with ABN is, if you make over $75,000, you got to register for GST.
Yes.
I've never had that.
No, I've never had that problem either. Sorry, but yes, it's a really good thing to note, because I do know some translators and interpreters that do it full time, all the time, 24/7, and do earn over that 75K mark. So it's really important. Yeah, which is fantastic. So it's really important that you do register for that GST, because again, you don't want to be in trouble with the ATO.
Yeah, be careful with that. So I think if you work as an interpreter and as a translator, so you're working during the day as an interpreter, and then you're burning the midnight oil at night time and on the weekends as a translator, which in most cases we do that, right? So not much of a social life. So you might combining the two professions, you might go over that $75,000. Hopefully you do. I mean, it's a good problem to have.
That's right.
But be careful with that. When you do go over that, you need to register for GST. So we've covered applying for agencies for work, ABN, TFN. What about writing a CV? So, you know, whether you're coming straight out of high school into uni and then into work life, or you're actually changing industries, like you coming from another industry, I come from another industry.
Yep.
In regards to writing a Tni Focused Cv, I mean, how do we fill it up with experience, and how much of our previous experience that is not Tni related can go in there? You know?
Yeah, look, it really depends on what you've done in your past life, because sometimes you might find some of your experience is actually valuable in the Tni space. So, for example, for me personally, I used to work as a receptionist in a hospital. So I had a lot of experience with doctors and dentists and other sort of healthcare professionals. And even though obviously I wasn't a translator interpreter at the time, it showed that I had that exposure to those types of jobs and to that type of industry. So you'll find that honestly, it would be just picking the things that are very similar or something that can be related to the T&I industry. But mostly when from, again, my own experience, I found that including information about any volunteering that I've done for community groups that I worked for in the past that were from my language base was really important. I included any extracurricular activities I completed while I was at uni. I mean, studying at RMIT, they had quite a few opportunities, things like internships or student leading activities, things like that. Pop that on there, really important. And yeah, basically anything else that you can put on there that shows your connection with the industry and your and the passion for the work that you do. It doesn't all need to be work-based. Really, that volunteering and that sort of extracurricular stuff can also be really helpful.
And also have a good CV. Have a good resume. And if you don't know how to write one, there's plenty of internet resources out there. I think Seek has a good template. Indeed has a good template that you can use. So have a look into those websites. And it's really good to have a professional looking CV when you're making job applications. So keep an eye on that. All right. So you've got your CV. Agencies, by the way, they're really understanding when it comes to experience, and they're looking mostly for your NAATI certification and your good grades, you know. So, and they understand that, you know, experience takes time to build. So I don't think they're going to look for too much work experience in interpreting and translation when you're applying for an agency, and they're understanding. They'll slowly start giving you work, and then you'll build that experience up as well.
Definitely. I think that's a really, really good point, because obviously if you are coming from a different industry, you don't have that experience. That's a given. But that's why NAATI is so important, because if you've passed at a certified level or a provisionally certified level, that shows that you have the skills in order to take on that type of work. So like you said, the agencies will put more stock in that than they would your previous work experience.
That's right. So agency work is one way to do it. Now, another way to do it is the way you've done it. So we all start with agency work a little bit, and then, you know, after gaining that experience, we start going, hang on, maybe I start doing this for myself and open up a little company. So tell us a little bit about Contigo Interpreting and Translating Services.
Yeah. Oh, look, it's a very little company. It's run by myself and my husband. Actually, he helps me with a lot of formatting. He's the format master, which is really important for translating. You need good formatting skills, so that's great. But essentially, after I applied for my ABN, I realized, you know, well, that's a business number, and I have that opportunity to actually turn this into something that I want to do. I was getting quite a bit of quite a few people emailing me like, can you translate this? Can you translate that? And I would find that when I did the document without having a proper business entity, it didn't look particularly professional. So I used to have like Simone Aliano up the top with my details, but I realized that a lot of the documents, particularly in translating, are used at places like DFAT or the Department of Immigration, and you want it to look nice. You don't want it to just have Simone Aliano on the top. And I sat down with my husband and we spoke about it, and we thought, you know, what would make it look good is a brand and a name, because that way when the translation comes to DFAT, they'll see, okay, there's actually a brand there. There's actually somewhere professional that I can contact if there's any issues, rather than just Simone Aliano as a person. So we decided on a name, which we decided on Contigo in Spanish.
What does Contigo mean?
I was going to say it means with you, which I thought was really, really nice. Again, my husband actually came up with the name. I didn't. So
does your husband do some work for interpreters? Can he build brands for us and help us format? Is there another side business, Jordan?
Maybe I might float it with him. He's actually really good at this stuff, so I might float it with him.
Business management, you know.
Absolutely. No, he came up with the name, and I quite liked it. I thought it was really nice, and we then thought, okay, the next big thing we need is a brand. How do we brand this company so that we can put that on our letterheads and our business cards, so it looks very professional. And we went through a website which I really enjoyed. It was called 99 Designs, and essentially it's basically designers from around the world, brand designers, that sign up to this, and you put like a little brief about what your business is and what you want to convey through your brand. And then they have 2 weeks to submit a bunch of designs to you, and you pick the one you like the most.
Oh, wow. Very good.
It was really cool. I really enjoyed it.
How much did that cost you, just out of curiosity?
Oh, look, I think it was fairly costly at the time. I would say between $800 to $1,000. But that includes obviously the letterhead, the design for your business card, a whole bunch of things.
That's still considerably cheap if you decide to do it locally with all those things.
That's right, because obviously you pay for the copyright as well, so that's why it's a little bit expensive. But because it's business related, you can claim that on tax, which is really good. So I think it was worth the investment personally. Yep. And it was a bit of fun. It was actually a bit of fun to have a look and see what people came up with in their designs. And I was really happy with the result of our brand, and it really made me as a translator feel a lot more confident with the work that I was putting out, because the quality of the work was there. I knew that my translation was good, but it was more just that polishing aspect of the final product that I gave to my clients.
No, that's a great idea. So any Spanish interpreting, translating work that needs to be done, we got to go to Contigo.
It's a little plug. Yeah, look, I think
I'll just drop that there.
No, look, I think it's definitely something I would recommend to any budding translators, particularly interpreters as well, because you obviously have your business cards and you can use that when you work. But yeah, I think in terms of translating, just always be mindful that the documents you are translating are generally legal documents, legally binding documents, birth certificates, driver's licenses, things like that. So you want whoever's receiving it, whatever government agency is receiving it, you want them to feel confident that your translation is a good one. And I think branding is one of those things that helps that. So
it gives that trust across, doesn't it?
Yes, exactly. It doesn't look like a Word document that Simone Aliano wrote up. It actually looks professional. Yep. So,
if you're interested, go down the line of starting up a little company like Simone has. If you want to do it on a more individual basis, definitely get a business card printed anyway.
I think it's worth it.
Doesn't cost you much. I think I got my business cards done from Print It.
Yep.
Print IT or Printed, or just the local printer, and I got 500 printed and I'm still going through them.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, you attach them to your final product.
So every time I do a translation, I attach it on top and I send it away. Just a couple for each document. Even when I'm interpreting, sometimes, because even when interpreting for an agency, they'll be like, okay, so can we work with you again? We really enjoyed working with you. And I was like, look, as long as the non-English speaking client is happy as well, you can request me from the agency again. and there's nothing wrong with that. That's totally ethical. And then I'd just leave a business card there so that they wouldn't go around writing it on a piece of paper they might lose.
Yep.
You know, so I have definitely gotten my money's back, my money back, and you know, from the $50 that I spent on getting those business cards printed.
Well, exactly. And again, it's a business expense. So, you know, it's things that are claimable on tax. So it's really important just to keep, if you do spend money on a brand or things like a business card or anything you're using for your business, keep your receipts, ensure that you keep a log, because come tax time, the things that you can claim back.
Well, let's talk about that. I think now that the topic's opened up, we'll have a little bit of a chat about that. So anything, if you've got an ABN, anything that you spend for your business, you can claim back from the tax office. All right. So that can be your parking slips when you go from one job to the other.
Yep.
That can be some of your petrol. That can be your stationery, your internet at home, you know, some of, you know, a percentage of your phone calls, percentage of your data and so on, your internet at home. And you can even go on a business plan with an ABN.
Yes.
You know, I've saved a lot of money from the phone company that I'm with, just changing from a personal plan to a business plan, you know, better rates and higher data as well. So that might be something to consider. And I also got myself a good accountant.
Yes.
So, you know, working with a TFN, I always did my taxes by myself. No problems there. But working with an ABN, I think it really pays off to, you know, spend a little bit of money on a good accountant, because they can really save you a lot of money and a lot of headache when it comes tax time.
Totally agree. I think that's indispensable advice, because honestly, like you said, when it's your own TFN, you're gaining a certain amount of money from an employer. It's very easy to do your taxes. Once you start wanting to claim this and that and have questions about what is claimable and things like that, it's great to have to defer that to a trusted accountant.
Yes, that's coming from a man who has not had the best couple of first years of his interpreting and translating tax time. You know, it's So take it from me, who suffered for the first couple of years. Get yourself a good accountant. All right. I won't give too much away to the tax office here, but everything's back on track now, is all I can say.
Good.
All right. So so we've checked agencies, we've checked starting your own company, branding, getting yourself out there, which is great. And mind you, you can do all of these simultaneously as well. It doesn't have to be one or the other. Another way we can get work is in-house interpreting or in-house translations, right? So what does that entail, Simone?
So generally they're jobs where you're working for a particular agency in-house. So that could be a hospital. You could be doing interpreting solely for that hospital. So let's just say, I don't know, the Royal Melbourne Hospital hires you and you work 4 days a week, 7 hours a day for those 4 days a week, and that's all you do. They're really good jobs to have, because you've got that security. You're actually an employee of that organization. They are quite limited. There's not that many of them, from what I know. Probably Fatih, you might know a bit more. I think hospitals do do a lot in certain languages. So depending on the community need for those certain languages. So I think Arabic, Greek, Italian, Turkish, Macedonian, those are the typical ones where you'll find in-house interpreting. Spanish, not so much. And I also know there's a couple of big companies out there who have their global companies that have an office in Melbourne that are always looking for NAATI certified translators to come on board and help translate documents for their company. So they're rare, but they can be found.
That's right. So in regards to interpreting, a majority of these in-house jobs, in my experience, you can find in hospitals.
Yeah.
Okay. So, and like you said as well, they are limited. They have their team of interpreters. So I was an in-house interpreter translator for a few years for a major hospital in Melbourne. And it was really good. You didn't have to worry about picking up jobs. You didn't have to worry about driving from one end of the town to the other end of the town to get to another job. You know, I actually really enjoyed having an office again to go to, and having colleagues, because when I first started interpreting, I thought I was going to really enjoy being like this solo guy, you know, driving from job to job and eating my sandwich alone in the car. I thought I was really going to enjoy it. I come from a hospitality background where I was dealing with hundreds of people every day. So I thought I was going to enjoy the solidarity, you know. Having said that, though, after a few months, I realized that I'm a people's person and I need my people around me. And, you know, just a bit of a heads up, interpreting can get a little bit lonely because, you know, you're just constantly driving one place to the other. And more so these days when you're interpreting from home, you know, you're stuck in a room all day doing video interpreting or telephone interpreting, can get lonely. So having these in-house positions, I found that not only for work, you know, I didn't have to worry about finding work anymore on a daily basis, but, you know, it was about belonging to a team again, and having office parties, learning so much from the colleagues around me. You know, there were so many experienced interpreters around me that I so highly value, that have interpreted for decades.
Yeah,
you know?
absolutely.
And just really having that extra contact with these people, as well as having a supervisor, a manager to go to devent, to talk about, to complain about, you know, these are the things that we miss as a freelance interpreter.
Yeah, absolutely.
So just a heads up, you know, if you're into your lone time and you think you're going to enjoy being a lonely cowboy, it does get a little bit lonely. I don't want to scare you off, but I did really enjoy going back and becoming a part of a team and just having people to bounce off again, you know.
Definitely. I think the in-house opportunities, if you're eligible for one, I would always recommend to go for it. Just provides you that bit of stability. And especially if you're just starting out, like you said, just being surrounded by all that experience is a huge, huge help.
So how do we get these positions as an in-house interpreter?
Well, my biggest tip is to set up job alerts on job search websites, particularly like Seek, for example. I've got 3 job alerts that I've set up. So one of them is for NAATI. I highly recommend you set that up.
What's a job alert?
So essentially it's you go on your profile and it asks you, it's like, what sort of jobs are you looking for? What are the key words of a job that you're looking for? So the keywords I've popped in my job search are NAATI, translating, of course, interpreting, and Spanish. So obviously that will come up with everything. So for example, Spanish, I often get job alerts for waiters at a Spanish restaurant or something like that. You know, anything that has Spanish in the title, it will come up, which is why I highly recommend using NAATI as the one, because if someone's writing NAATI in their job description, they want a certified interpreter.
Yeah.
That is it.
And NAATI is not a word that everyone's going to be using.
That's right, exactly. So I find that using that word NAATI as your job search keyword is fantastic, and you will find, not always, that, like I said, they are pretty rare, these in-house jobs, but you'll find that if you do have that job search up, that keyword NAATI, it will flag quite a few of them for you.
Be careful of just putting interpreter for the keyword. I did that initially. I kept on getting parts interpreter.
Yes.
Parts interpreter. I was like, what's a parts interpreter?
Yeah.
You know,
the same with translator, because I think there's like, I don't know, it was like data translator or something like that. I was like, what is that? Yeah.
You've got to put NAATI in there. So I found parts interpreting is, you know, it's about car parts.
Yeah.
Knowing about what fits where, I guess. I still don't know to this day.
Yeah.
But yeah, be careful. So NAATI should definitely be in your keyword.
NAATI, I would always recommend putting your language as well. Like I said, you might get some duds. So, but honestly, if you're looking for Vietnamese, for example, you might get a few Vietnamese restaurant things coming up, but you'll often find sometimes they do want Vietnamese speaking, I don't know, admin assistant with NAATI accreditation or something along those lines.
Yeah.
So I would recommend that too. But yeah, just be careful. They can be quite broad. It's always good to in my opinion, to cast your net pretty wide and just see what comes up. But I mean, definitely NAATI. Add that to your list. Yep.
Now, in regards to translation, I know there are some local, international, like you said, localization companies.
Yep.
So, you know, they might get a manual, there might be a product, and they might get a team of translators together, and you might be working on a project for years sometimes.
That's right. Yep.
You know, so for translators, there is more permanent work out there as well. You just got to, like you said, look for it. So keep those keywords happening and keep checking those websites as well. I still, to this day, you know, I've never turned off my notifications, and it's just good to know what's out there.
I agree.
You know?
I agree. The other reason I do that is because obviously if there is something, maybe I'm not necessarily looking for any work, but if there is something that, you know, I know Fatih might be interested in, I'll pass it on. Yes. You know, it's part of that collegiality, because translating and interpreting is a small, it's still quite a small profession in Australia. You tend to get to know people very quickly in the profession as well. So it's always good to keep an eye out for your friends and your colleagues, and they'll do the same for you. So yeah, I still to this day have my my Seek alerts on as well, Fatih.
Definitely. Good to keep an eye out what's happening. And like you said, professional solidarity. You might know someone who might be interested. Another place I found a bit of work through was the embassy or the consulate.
Yep.
So, you know, either for whatever official reason, you might need some official documents translated. So depending on how your consulate works, you might, or the embassy works, you might go in there and get yourself registered with their list of translators. Yep. And then, you know, you might get some work from them as well.
Yep, absolutely. I think that's a really good idea.
All right, very good. And another one for the Turkish community was they have a Turkish yellow pages. So I don't know, you might find a
Spanish one of those.
Yeah, so it's called Golden Directory. Okay.
That's awesome.
So, you know, it's Turkish to English and English to Turkish. You turn it upside down. It's like the Aldi brochures,
catalogs. You know? That is awesome. Well, there you go. Like, I'm sure there are other language communities out there that have something similar. So
yep. So have a look there. It might be worth putting a little entry in there. You know, it might not cost a lot. So have a look at your LOTE yellow pages. Could be another way to do it. And I want to talk now about LinkedIn.
Yep.
You know, these days I find myself more on LinkedIn than on Facebook, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
It is such an interesting place to be. Even when I'm just, you know, just constantly scrolling down. And like I said, not only is it for professional purposes, I actually find it very interesting. Lots of articles on there, you know. So tell us a little bit about LinkedIn and what it does and what it might do for your business or your profession.
Yeah, look, I'm with you. I 100% love LinkedIn. So essentially, it's a social media platform that's aimed at professionals. So unlike your Facebook or your Instagram, what you'll find there is that people put up their details on their work experience, really, and have a professional network. So while you might not be friends with your boss on Facebook, you most certainly will be on LinkedIn. So it's definitely a different style. I signed up personally to LinkedIn a few years back. So I was living with a girl at the time, my housemate, who is a marketing strategist. And I wasn't interested in LinkedIn in the first place. And she was obsessed with her LinkedIn. And I asked her, like, should I set one up? And she said to me some words I've never forgotten, which was, Simone, you want to be in charge of what a potential employer first sees when they Google you. And I thought, that's quite interesting, because if you do have a LinkedIn account and you Google your own name, that's generally the first thing that pops up. So she said there's nothing more impressive than a good-looking LinkedIn, and I agree 100%. It's somewhere where a potential employer can Google you, find you, click on you, and then see at a glance the professionalism that you have. So your past experiences, if you've ever published any articles, you know, who you've worked with.
Any professional memberships you might have. Could
exactly.
Be on there.
Yep. It's just a really great way to stand out. It's free. So, I mean, you can pay for the premium access, which provides you certain certain, I think you can look at people's profiles without them seeing that you've looked at it.
Also, you can see who's looked at yours.
Oh, there you go. Yes, because exactly. So it gives you a bit more of a spy look. But yeah, generally, I've just got a free account, which I love. And you just put all your detail, but basically put your work experience up there, which is really great. And I've also found that people have found me through there. So I've actually had a few people come to me requesting translating work or interpreting work through LinkedIn. They've found my profile.
Definitely. I can relate to that.
They've checked it out and they've emailed me, messaged me through LinkedIn. So look, I don't see any negatives with LinkedIn really. If you've got a really good profile, it's fantastic. And you can also set up a business page. So if you do go down the logo route like I have, you can set up a business page on LinkedIn as well. So it just looks really, really, really good.
Very good. So if I look you up on Google, I'm just going to get your LinkedIn profile first.
You will. It will be one of the first things that pops up. And I think people don't think about that too much. Employers, if you're looking at a couple of CVs and you want to, that look very similar, they're going to compare and they're going to find points of comparison. So if you've got a really good looking LinkedIn.
Yeah, and it's almost like having your CV on there as well, isn't it? It's got your educational background, your professional background, your interests. They can have a look at what kind of things you've been posting to see how active you are in your profession, how passionate you are within your profession. I think so. It's definitely a good place to have a presence in. In regards to having a photo there, you don't have to go and spend hundreds of dollars on a professional portrait. I just recently, I was looking on the web and there are, even just with your smartphone, there's some really good tips on, for the good lighting, for the good background, what kind of a pose you should give. There's a lot there that you can do without spending a lot of money in setting up a good LinkedIn account and getting your presence out there.
Yep.
So that is a very, very good recommendation. And we said website, you can go down. And if you don't have a website, LinkedIn can almost work as your website.
That's right. Yeah. I also found I've also joined my company to Facebook. So I have a Facebook company page as well, which has been really great because it's a place where people can also leave reviews for you and your work. I find LinkedIn doesn't have that option. It's more about your business as a whole rather than reviews, whereas Facebook, you have that company review section. And that's really, really helpful because if your customers leave a good review, they're going to, pass your details on to someone else that might need your services. And the first thing you're going to look at is the reviews. If your reviews are good and your activity on that page is also good, you're laughing. I think it's a really, really good idea. So yeah, that's another
very good.
thing.
And most of these things don't cost you money, folks. So it's just a little bit of your time and effort put in there.
That's right.
Now, okay, we've set things up and we start working for an agency or for ourselves. Or in-house, wherever it may be. How are we going to start building a network? How are we going to start making a good name for ourselves? There's so many interpreters out there. It's not like an Uber driver. In a way, if you're working for an agency, it's like you're an Uber driver.
It is kind of, yeah.
in a way, it is. But there isn't actually anyone maybe giving you stars that you know of.
Yep.
But people do talk about you, don't they? For the good or for the bad. So it's not just you walk to a job and then you leave, you go to the next one. You're like, yep, that's it. So how do we make sure that we are building the right networks and that we are being requested for jobs and that, we are making a good name for ourselves in this industry?
Oh, look, I think the first and foremost thing I would recommend is get to know the AUSIT Code of Ethics and apply everything that's in there to a T. That is really, really important. It just shows your professionalism. On that note, looking professional, going to jobs. If you go to a job looking a bit sloppy, it's not a great look. People are not going to want to hire you back. And you might be the best interpreter there is, but they're not going to like that. So, put a bit of effort, dress up, you're professional and treat yourself that way.
Let's talk about that a little bit. Okay. So dressing up professionally. So I always say, have a look around you at the institution that you're going to, So when you're in a hospital, you're actually one of the hospital staff.
That's right.
What are the doctors wearing? You know, I'm not saying put on a nurse's outfit or a surgeon's outfit, but have a look at what the people are wearing. You know, doctor is the professional, and you're also a professional there. You know, they'd be wearing probably pants or a skirt and a shirt or something. You're not going to see them in tracksuits or a jeans and a t-shirt, are you? You know,
No.
when you go to the courtroom, have a look around you. Courtroom's another level.
Yeah,
so
that's even more.
You know,
yeah,
you got to have a suit. I used to have a suit for the courtroom, and I used to have my magistrate's courtroom suit, which was a simple two-piece, and then I had my Supreme Court suit, you know, which was just that next level up kind of a suit, you know, the one I didn't often wear.
Yep.
So
you don't want them to mistake you for one of the clients. You know what I mean? Like you want them to have a quick glance and go, okay, that's the interpreter. They've got their credential. They're looking professional. It makes a big difference. And
also, you know, if you want to be treated like a professional, you got to act the part and look the part as well. Is what I think. Absolutely. So I think that is something that for me personally has gone a long way. I always put a little bit more effort in when I know I'm going to a job. I want to make sure that I look professional because 9 times out of 10, it's going to result in a repeat. Someone calling me and saying, we want you again, because they know, okay, Simone comes to the job. She looks great. She does a great job. Why would we want anyone else? So definitely. Act professional, look professional, be professional. What about, what else? How early do you go to a job?
Yeah, look, I always arrive at least 10 minutes early, if not earlier. Sometimes that can be a bit of overkill, but I prefer to be there before the job. So it can be a bit annoying when you go to, Fatih, you probably know, you go to a hospital and they're running behind and you've rocked up 10 minutes early and they call you 20 minutes late. That's annoying, but you know, you're there and you've arrived at your time and you're there looking professional and acting professional, and that goes a long way. It allows you to sometimes also get a bit of a debrief about what your matter is going to be about. If the agency hasn't given you that detail, you can ask, okay, so I'm here, what's this matter about? And it gives you a bit of time to just think, put yourself in that mode and think about the words and the language you might have to use for that job. So I think really 10 to 15 minutes early is always really good.
Very good. So get there early. Look, I always think use that time for briefing, even if it's with the non-English speaker. You know, it's better than no briefing. So without getting too friendly and too chummy with your non-English speaker, you know, you can introduce yourself and kind of ask them, find out if they've ever worked with an interpreter before. Maybe you tell them how the interpreter's role is going to work, and then you get a little bit of a background. You know, make that time into a more useful time, and try not to sit next to the non-English speaker while you're waiting. You know, don't get too friendly with them, because things might just get out of hand when you go inside. I'm sure they've already taught you in your ethics courses why, but you know, just try to stay in a polite and courteous way without coming across as too aloof, I guess. You know, introduce yourself, get a bit of a briefing, find out about them a little bit, and then see if you can sit a little bit away from them. Some hospitals will have areas that interpreters sit in, or some institutions that you go to will have interpreter rooms. Some of them won't, so be careful. Okay.
Yes. Yep. I think that's really good advice.
And I think with the debriefing, first and last impressions always last, yeah?
Oh, big time. Yeah. Absolutely. Big time. I find that sometimes the professionals I usually use the excuse to sign the papers as a way to finish my job. So, you know, I say goodbye to my client and then say, I have to sign some paperwork off. You go, because sometimes the client might want to hang around with you.
Keep chatting and
keep chat. So that's a really
Darling,
good way.
How old are you? Are you married?
Yeah. Are you married is one I get all the time. But yeah, essentially it's a good way to sort of break it off without being rude. I know it can be a bit hard. Sometimes you spent an hour with that person and they feel comfortable and they want to continue the conversation, but you can't. So I often use that opportunity where I say, okay, I have to stay behind and sign some papers. You go. And then once they leave, I then do my debriefing with the doctor, just make sure, or with whoever it is, the professional, just make sure everything's okay. they were happy, and that sort of that debriefing, like you said, just goes such a long way. Say you've taken that time, it's that extra little bit of effort that you've put in to ensure that they're happy with the job that you've provided, and they'll remember that. They remember you.
Yeah, and it's usually in that debrief that I've gotten, can we work with you again?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yep. Exactly right.
Very good. Now, another one I would think I'd like to recommend is, especially when you're working for multiple agencies, keep a good working diary.
Yes, absolutely. And actually look at where you are accepting jobs, because it's one thing when you're working for an agency, it can be quite hard because, you know, you've only got a certain amount of time to accept the job before someone else accepts it. But it's important to also be wary of where the job is, because the last thing you want is to accept a job in Werribee and then an hour later you've accepted another job in Epping. It's just not going to happen. So you need to be really, really mindful about what you're doing. And, you know, if, for example, what I found works for me is that, you know, I'll set aside a day where I might be working the northern suburbs or the western suburbs, and I'll actually book according to that. So if I see something in the northern suburbs and I've got that time free, I know that it won't take me as long to get from each job comparative to just accepting whatever job comes up. So it's really important to be organized. Yeah,
so I find that my smartphone is really good with the diary keeping. So I tried to keep a manual one. It didn't really work for me. And then I finally figured out how to use the calendar to my advantage. Especially with multiple agencies, I think you really need to understand how your calendar works, make the most of the technology, and maybe, like you said, once a week, sit down and make yourself a cup of coffee, tea, glass of wine or whatever, and then just have a look at your week.
Yes.
You know, see what's coming up. And then if there are any gaps, then you might go, okay, so if I get a job offer on this day between this time and this time, you know, then you know your gaps that you need to fill.
That's right.
So if you don't take the time to sit down and check your week, like we said before, you know, we are a little bit of an Uber driver in regards to so many jobs coming. And then, man, you know, it's like the fastest gun in the west winds. It's like the fastest thumb in the interpreting whirlwind sometimes.
Yeah,
right?
That's exactly right. It can be a bit overwhelming because obviously a job will be posted and it goes out to every interpreter of that language at a certain level. If they've asked for a certified interpreter, they'll go to all the Spanish certified interpreters. And like you said, Fatih, you've got that limited time to accept the job, but you just also have to be mindful. Agencies don't like it when you accept a job and then all of a sudden you realize, oh crap, I can't take this job anymore. Again, it's your professionalism. It doesn't look good. So it's important to just maintain that professionalism and your organization skills. I
think I know that it's going to be pretty hard. You want to kind of grab every single job that's coming to you, but trust me, there'll be plenty coming. Don't overbook yourself. Don't book yourself, you know, with jobs too far away from each other with not enough time. You know, I used to find myself walking into the toilet with my phone.
Yeah.
You know, going, oh my God, I'm going to miss a job.
What am I going to miss? Yeah.
You know, so you need to kind of get out of that headspace. It takes a few months to get out of that headspace, because then you start worrying when you go into a job because your phone's switched off and you start going, oh my God, I wonder what the jobs that I'm missing. So be careful. Another recommendation I have is when you have your phone and you go to a job, switch it off. All right, switch it off. Don't put it on silent and keep it in your pocket, because you put that phone in your pocket and it's vibrating. Every time it vibrates, you're like, I just missed another job. I just missed another job. You know, just don't do that to yourself. When you walk into a job, 90 minutes, hour, 2 hours, whatever it is for, concentrate on that, switch that off or put it on do not disturb or something and put it in your bag. Don't leave it in your phone, or if you're not carrying a bag, which I think you should, even if you're a guy. I had like a work bag, you know, my notepad, my phone, my backup charger, everything, multiple pens, sign-off slips. So for multiple agencies nowadays, you know, most agencies use the phone.
That's right.
But
you want your credentials for every agency as well.
Exactly, credentials. So every agency will have its own ID badge, so that you would need to wear to the job. So like have a little bit of a working bag, I think. and then just take that phone off your person and put it in there when you are interpreting.
I absolutely agree. My trick, I don't turn it off, I have to admit, but I do put it on airplane mode, so I don't get the buzzing. I don't, because you want to be, again, it's a courteous to both the client and the professional you're working with. You want to be there for that time. You've been hired to convey messages for that client, and you want to appear as professional as possible and be 100% on that job. And the last thing you want is your phone buzzing in your pocket and you looking at it or turning it off.
Yeah, that's the worst thing you can do. Like, when we talk about how do I get those repeat jobs, that's not how you get it. It's not, maybe you pick that, you take that phone and you get that job for that gap you needed, but then you might lose this client forever.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. You may miss a couple of jobs by putting your phone on airplane mode for that hour, but like you said, Fatih, you'll keep a repeat client because they'll be like, Simone took the opportunity to fully be there and do the best job, and we want that person again.
And they deserve that. They're paying for those services. It's already a cognitively demanding job. Last thing you want to do is lose your concentration or focus on something else,
Absolutely. 100% agree. So yeah, that's a really good tip.
What else? So we said keep your receipts for everything, get a good accountant. We've covered that. Now, what are your thoughts? So especially when you just finished uni, right? Or you've just finished your course, you think you know everything. You just want to get out there and work, but how do we keep this knowledge, keep these skills enhanced?
Oh gosh. Well, I'm a nerd, as you can see from the background. You've
got a bit more room there going on to the other wall.
Going there. Well, look, I can't stress how important ongoing professional development is. It is awesome. It's an opportunity to learn new things, just keep your knowledge fresh. Things change. You may have just graduated from uni, but things change very quickly. And this year's shown it, telephone interpreting and video interpreting. It was such a small amount of the work that we would do. And now it's become the biggest thing that we do at the moment. So, things do change, and along with it, so does the learning. So highly recommend just keep going with your PD. Join a professional organisation like AUSIT if you're an AUSIT member.
Definitely join AUSIT. Yeah.
Definitely join AUSIT. PD is discounted for AUSIT members, which is great. So, and again, that's another cost that you can claim back because it is related to your work. So, I would just continually do as many PD sessions as you like. If you find that if you like medical interpreting, for example, or legal interpreting, there's always webinars and things like that, PD sessions on those specific topics. So that's always a really good thing to do to deepen your knowledge about those subjects. Highly recommend. And the other good thing about doing PD is that you meet other interpreters and translators. Yeah. And like Fatih said a bit earlier, it can be a bit of a lonely job, and that networking, doing your PD and things like that opens up the doors to meeting and getting to know other people in the profession. And that's only a benefit to you. So yeah, highly recommend continue doing that PD.
Yep. So as a NAATI recertification requirement, you're going to need to do it anyway, but don't do it just for that reason. No. Of course, that's a good incentive, but I think it's really important, doing PD, even when you've completed your 120 points, if you find something that you're really interested in, or there is a gap in your skills that you really need to fill, you're like, don't be like, oh, I did my 120 points, I'll wait until the next certification period. No, if you feel you need enhancement now, do it now. Okay, trust me, it'll all pay off at the end. Another thing with AUSIT is, like you said, interpreting can be lonely. AUSIT has a forum that brings all interpreters and translators together, so you can keep in touch with like-minded fellow practitioners there. As you all know, Conversations also has quite a lot of professional development and training resources on their website too. So just you got to continually enhance your skills and knowledge, I think, if you want to, because you might be a great interpreter for the first few years of your career, right? But then if you kind of let that go to your head and you don't keep up with what's going on in the rest of the world and in the industries, you might find yourself kind of being taken over by other people who have
That's right.
Made the effort. Right?
No, you're spot on, and I think there's nothing better than doing like PD sessions with like lively debate and lively chat with your colleagues. You just learn so much, and it's not always just about that topic, whatever that topic might be. It could be about other people's experiences, what they did in certain situations that you've found yourself in before, any tips and tricks that you can take to the job. So yeah, definitely. I would highly recommend just continually do PD as you go over the years.
Very good. Look, I think we've covered quite a lot of things, and I hope that helps all you new graduates out there. Simone, is there anything else you want to add?
No, I think for now that's really good. I think all I could say is good luck to everyone that's who's now coming into the profession. I love translating and interpreting, as I know Fatih does too, and it is an amazingly fulfilling job or profession, I should say. So good luck to everyone that's out there, and if you've got any more questions, send them to Fatih, because I think more of these discussions is so good. So
that's right. So any questions, Fatih at allgraduates.com.au, send it my way. If you have any questions for Simone, again, email it to me and I'll ask her, and we'll get you back on again, because that was a lovely chat. We'll get you back on again, and then we'll say, so now that you've been interpreting, what's next? All
Absolutely. Right? Yeah, I'd love to hear. I think also maybe discussions or any questions that you have on ethical scenarios. It's always really interesting. Maybe send them through to Fatih.
Yeah, send them through. Any dilemmas you might be faced with, send them through and see if we can talk it over here.
Yeah.
We're going to start doing a little bit of a series on ethics as well, I hope, in the new year. So please send those ethical dilemmas that you're faced with, probably on a daily basis. God knows how many times we are faced with them. So I don't think there's going to be a shortage in supply.
No, definitely not. Definitely not. So yeah, I think I'm really glad that some students have already reached out, and hopefully we've answered some of those questions. But yeah, if there's any more, I highly recommend reach out to Fatih. Join AUSIT, ask those questions in the forums. There's so much support out there for new interpreters, and it's really important that you get those answers to those questions, and we're all here to help each other. So yeah, thanks for having me on here, Fatih.
Well done, Simone. Thank you so much for coming onto the show, and I really appreciate it. It was really good to see you again.
Yeah, obviously. Likewise, it's been lovely.
And again, congratulations as well.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Yes, I have a little green jelly bean growing at the moment. That's what we're calling it.
Yeah. All right. Very good. Everyone, thank you very much for tuning in. Today I was with Simone Aliano, who was an interpreting and translating student not too long ago, but now is a very successful interpreter, translator, who owns her own company, and is now telling us how an interpreter and translator's professional life is. Simone, thank you so much for your time again.
No worries. Cheers, Fatih.
Ciao.
Bye.
All Graduates Conversations Podcast.